Hello, horror lovers. Welcome to the chilling world of Mr. Haunt. Please subscribe. It's our biggest motivation to keep bringing you spine-tingling stories. Let us know in the comments which city you're listening from. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Now, let's get into the stories. I took the forestry job because I wanted isolation. After my divorce, silence felt safer than people. The assignment was simple. Survey a protected woodland, slated for expansion, mark boundaries, log growth patterns. I'd be camping alone for 10 days. The woods were familiar at first, predictable, trails looped cleanly, landmarks easy to remember: a split oak near the creek, a fallen pine shaped like an arrow, a cluster of stones half buried in moss. I mapped everything meticulously. That's how I knew something was wrong on day 3. The split oak was gone, not cut, not fallen, gone. In its place stood 3 younger trees, growing too close together, their bark still pale. I checked my map. Same coordinates, same elevation. I assumed I'd miss. Fatigue does that by evening. My trail back to camp felt longer. The air grew heavy, damp in a way that clung to my skin. Sounds felt delayed: bird calls echoing a second too late. Footsteps answering mine from directions I hadn't moved toward. When I reached camp, my tent was still there, but the creek was closer, close enough that I could hear water brushing stones, even though it had been at least 50 yards away the night before. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, my compass spun uselessly for nearly a minute before settling. The sun filtered through the canopy at a wrong angle, like the forest had rotated overnight. I walked toward what should have been the western boundary. Instead, I found myself at a clearing I'd never marked. In the center stood a ring of stones. They weren't stacked. They weren't decorative. They were pressed deep into the soil, old enough that roots had grown around them, holding them in place like restraints. Inside the circle, the ground was bare: no leaves, no grass, no insects. I stepped closer and felt it. Immediately, pressure, not physical, intentional, like stepping into the edge of someone else's conversation. I backed away, heart racing, and marked the location with bright tape. I told myself it was some forgotten marker, something historical. When I returned that evening, the tape was gone, not torn, untied, removed cleanly. That night, I heard footsteps outside my tent, slow, careful, heavy enough to compress soil, but never snapping a twig. They circled once, twice, stopping at intervals that felt measured, evaluated. I stayed still. I didn't unzip the tent. I didn't speak. A hand pressed lightly against the canvas, not pushing. Feeling the shape behind it was wrong to many joints, fingers bending at angles that suggested imitation rather than anatomy. It lingered, then withdrew. The footsteps retreated, fading into the woods without urgency. At dawn, I packed immediately, but the trail out wasn't where it should have been. Paths I'd walked twice now led somewhere else entirely. Hills rose where there had been level ground. A dense thicket blocked a route that had been clear days ago. The woods weren't random. They were correcting me. By afternoon, panic crept in. My GPS showed movement, but landmarks refused to align. Every direction felt like a suggestion, not a rule. That's when I realized the silence had returned. No birds, no insects, no wind. The woods were listening. I stopped walking and spoke out loud, leaving. The ground seemed to exhale. A path opened ahead of me, not newly formed, but revealed. Brush bent aside just enough to pass. Stones aligned subtly, pointing forward. I followed it, without thinking. Within an hour, I was at the tree line. My truck sat exactly where I'd left it, behind me. The woods looked normal again, disorganized, natural. The final report I submitted was incomplete, sanitized. I cited environmental instability, erosion, mapping interference. No one questioned it, but sometimes, when I walk in city parks, I notice trees growing closer together than they should, paths curving slightly when I'm not paying attention, and I remember the feeling of the woods deciding where I was allowed to stand. I don't go hiking anymore, not because I'm afraid of getting lost, but because I know now that some forests don't want to be understood and respected, and they know exactly how to move when you aren't looking. I hike alone because people talk too much. They miss things. The woods don't reward that kind of carelessness. I'd been following an old trail deep into state land, the kind marked on outdated maps, but ignored by casual hikers. No cell signal. No foot traffic. Perfect. The first sign something was wrong was the smell. Not rot, not animals. Something warm and old, like breath held too long. It came and went in waves, strongest when I stopped moving. When I walked, it faded. I told myself it was just the forest settling, air pockets shifting with temperature. By late afternoon, I realized I hadn't heard another human sound all day, not even distant traffic. Just my boots on dirt and the slow rhythm of my breathing. That should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt managed. I reached a narrow stretch where the trail dipped into a shallow ravine. Trees grew too close together there, trunks leaning inward like spectators. As I descended, the temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged. Halfway down, I heard footsteps behind me. I stopped. They stopped. Not a branch snapping, not leaves rustling. Weight, placement, someone copying my pace, too precisely to be coincidence. I waited, heart pounding, then took a step forward. So did they. I didn't turn around. The trail climbed on the other side, and I picked up speed, telling myself it was another hiker messing around. But the steps never rushed, never lagged, always exactly one pace behind. When I finally reached a clearing, I spun around. Nothing. No one. The woods stood still, innocent and quiet. Sunlight filtered down in soft, harmless beams. I laughed out loud, partly from relief, partly to convince myself I was still in control. That's when I noticed the second set of footprints. They were behind mine in the dirt, perfectly aligned, same size, same tread pattern, same wear on the outer heel. Mine. I stared at them until my vision blurred. I hadn't heard anyone following me. Something had been walking as me. I left the trail immediately, cutting cross-country, toward where my GPS said the road should be. That's when the forest changed its behavior. Underbrush thickened. Fallen logs appeared where there hadn't been any. Every shortcut curved me back toward the ravine. The footsteps returned. Closer now. I ran. Branches grabbed at my clothes, my pack. My lungs burned. I burst through brush and nearly collided with a shape standing in my path. It was me, not a reflection, not a trick of light. It stood wrong posture, too straight, head tilted slightly, like it was learning how to hold itself. Its face was my face, but emptied of expression, eyes dark and focused. It took one step forward. I stepped back. It smiled, not because it felt something, but because it had learned that I would. I don't remember how I escaped, only that I stumbled onto the road, just as the sun dropped below the trees. A passing driver stopped, asked if I was hurt. I said no, because how do you explain that the woods don't always hunt you directly? Sometimes they just practice being you. I threw away my boots when I got home, but every now and then, I wake up with dirt under my fingernails, and the feeling that something out there finally learned how to walk without making a sound. lost my wedding ring somewhere in the forest, and that's when the woods started noticing me. It slipped off my finger while I was clearing brush on my property, 10 acres backed directly into unmanaged woodland. I felt it go, a light tap against my knuckle, then nothing. I searched for an hour, combing through leaves and dirt, until my knees ached. I never found the ring. That night, I dreamed of something heavy settling into the soil, roots wrapping around metal, pulling it down slowly, like it belonged there. When I woke up, the woods were closer. Not physically, not yet, but they felt attentive. Sounds carried differently. A snapped twig echoed too long. Birds went quiet when I stepped outside, then resumed the moment I retreated. The next morning, something lay on my porch. My ring, clean, polished, warmer than it should have been. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. No scratches, no dirt. It looked better than it had in years. I should have been relieved. Instead, my stomach twisted. I didn't tell my wife. I slid the ring back on and went about my day, pretending I hadn't noticed the faint smell of damp soil clinging to it. That evening, I dropped my keys in the driveway. They vanished instantly. No bounce, no clatter. Just gone. I didn't search this time. The next morning, they were on the porch, beside the ring, placed carefully, deliberately. That was when I understood that woods weren't returning lost things out of kindness. They were teaching me something. I tested it. I tossed an old glove into the tree line, waited the next day. It was back cleaned, folded neatly, sitting on the steps. Then a pocket knife. Then a flashlight dot. Each time, the items came back altered, improved, sharper, brighter, more ready. But something else started changing too. Paths formed where I walked often, bending toward the house like veins. Trees leaned subtly inward, blocking sight lines from the road. The forest began arranging itself around me, protecting me. The first night I heard footsteps circling the house. I wasn't afraid. They were heavy, confident, multiple. Something brushed against the siding, testing pressure points. I stayed inside, calm in a way that surprised me. The next morning, there were drag marks near the fence line, and something dark caught in the brush. I didn't go out to look. After that, the woods started asking for things, not directly, never with words. Things went missing that I didn't offer: tools, clothing, eventually one of our outdoor chairs. Each time, something came back in exchange. A better tool, a sturdier chair. A lock I hadn't installed myself. My wife noticed the changes before I admitted the truth. She said the house felt watched, guarded, like it wasn't fully ours anymore. She asked me if I'd been leaving things in the woods. I lied. That night, she packed a bag and stayed with her sister. The next morning, her bag was on the porch, unzipped, empty. I stood at the edge of the trees and spoke aloud for the first time. She doesn't belong to you. The forest was silent. Then something shifted, branches creaking, roots adjusting beneath the soil, like a body turning in sleep. The bag remained. She never came back. It's been years now. I live alone, surrounded by trees that grow thick and healthy, closer each season. I don't lose things anymore, because I don't drop them, and because I understand now that the woods don't steal, they trade, and once you accept a return, you're part of the arrangement. I grew up near those woods, which is probably why it took so long for me to realize they were different from other forests. Familiarity dulls suspicion. You stop asking why certain paths feel avoided, why animals never linger in specific patches, why the air grows heavier the deeper you go, even on clear days. The marking happened on a dare. I was 17, drunk on cheap beer and bravado, following my friends into the woods past the old logging road. There was a tree everyone knew about. We called it the Split Father. Massive trunk, bark torn down the center like something had tried to climb out of it instead of in. The rule was simple. Touch it, stay still for 10 seconds, come back. I went last. The bark was warm. That's what stuck with me. Not sun-warmed this. Was after midnight, but warm in the way skin is warm when blood moves underneath. I pressed my palm flat against it and felt a subtle vibration, like a pulse buried deep inside the wood. I made it to 10 seconds. When I pulled my hand away, my palm was streaked dark, stained by sap that smelled faintly metallic. My friends laughed. Someone slapped my back. The night went on. I forgot about it. The woods didn't. Over the next few weeks, strange things followed me home. Leaves in my pockets I didn't remember picking up. Dirt under my nails after showering. Scratches on my arms that looked like I'd brushed past thorns. I hadn't been hiking. Animals noticed too. Dogs growled when I walked past. Horses sidestepped nervously. Birds scattered in sudden bursts when I stepped outside. Not fear recognition. I left town for college, thinking distance would fix it. It didn't. Every time I walked near trees, I felt watched, not threatened. Sometimes, when I rested my hand on a trunk, I felt that same vibration. Slow, measuring, like something counting me. Years later, after my mother died, I returned home to settle her estate. The woods had crept closer. Paths, I remembered, as wide narrow now, almost closed. The Split Father still stood, larger than before, the tear in its bark deeper, wider. I tried not to look at it. That night, I dreamed of roots moving beneath the soil, stretching, mapping. In the dream, I wasn't running. I was being placed, and I woke up. There was a mark on my chest. Not a scratch. A pattern. Thin lines pressed into the skin like veins, branching outward from a central point just above my heart. They faded by noon, but the sensation didn't hand awareness, like I'd been added to a system already in motion. The next evening, I heard someone walking near the tree line. I called out, thinking it was a neighbor. No answer. Instead, the wood shifted, branches bent. Leaves rustled in synchronized waves. I felt it then, clearly for the first time. The forest wasn't reacting to me. It was accounting for me. I understood what the mark meant. I wasn't prey. I wasn't protected either. I was cataloged. That's why I don't go near old forests anymore. Parks are fine. Managed trails. Places where humans decide what grows and what gets cut back. Because deep woods don't need to chase you. They just need to know where you are. And once they've marked you, distance doesn't matter at all.